Well, hey, welcome everybody. This is the inaugural episode with yours truly, Tony Blodgett. And my goal with this podcast is to have conversations and interviews, mostly with loan originators, to kind of hear their story and share that with all of you. And so it's only fitting that here for our very first episode, we have my good friend, Addy Nett, who is really my inspiration for even doing a podcast at all. Matter of fact, he was the inspiration for the design of the studio and a lot of the social media content that I've been creating and will be creating in the future, and really working together to be able to do that. So I'm really excited and was excited to have Addy join our team here at New American Funding. And really because he's a great guy, he's a good friend, but also on top of being a loan originator and helping families, purchase homes and relocate to Oregon, which is where he lives down in Portland. He also has a real passion and I think vision for marketing and this whole podcast idea. So Addy, thanks for being my first guest.
Yes, I'm stoked. I'm on the pilot episode.
They
will always say I was on the first episode.
That's right.
And thanks for the nice introduction too.
Yeah, well,
I think I earned all of that. That's all truth, right?
Yeah. Well, hey, we're working out bugs here, but look, like anything, you got to start somewhere. And so this is where the Basis Point podcast starts is right here. So Addy, I want to jump right into it and just have a quick conversation with you. We're going to try to keep these short and to the point. But let's just start with, our story goes back a few years and we got introduced. You were at a place where you were looking to make a move in your career. And actually, you chose to go a different direction. Like we had some great conversations and had some options for you, but you felt like there was some other opportunity. And, this happens a lot. And I think there's a lot to be said for people like me who are recruiters or other managers that might listen to this about, hey, just because something doesn't work today doesn't mean you shouldn't leave the door open, and you never know what's going to happen, especially in this very small industry. So maybe what was your version of kind of that conversation, the decision you made? We don't have to go into who the company was if you don't want to, but just that process and then kind of how we reconnected.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I did go to a different company. You and I first started talking, 3-4 years ago?
Yeah.
And it wasn't personal. It was, I really made the decision to go with people on a particular team. And I think the lesson I learned there was we all have people that we like to work with, right? But in the end, loans need to close and that process has to work, right? And unfortunately, it wasn't working there. So my heart was like, I went there for my heart. Like, I had an ops manager that was one of my best friends. I knew A, B, and C. This is going to be great. Everyone wants to work with people they like. You hear it all the time.
Right.
But in the end, my clients, my home buyers, they don't care that I'm friends with the ops manager. They care that I can get docs out tomorrow. Right. So unfortunately, the platform wasn't working. I was getting CTCs and it was taking 5 business days to get docs to escrow. This just doesn't cut it in this market. Yeah. Everything is so bottlenecked. Price, rate, fee, everything. And us just not closing on time was unacceptable. And there's so much more that NAF brings to the table. But when I opened up the conversation with you again, it was like kind of little puppy comes back to Tony. Hey, Tony, I think I might be driving the wrong car over here, right? And that's really the way I look at it. I use that analogy is when I turn my key in the ignition, I expect it to turn on. And you explained the ops setup here, and it's unbelievable, man. Like just in the last couple dozen loans, how much energy and time I get back, not justifying why we're not closing the business we already earned.
Yeah. Well, I love hearing that. And that really is our secret sauce, I think, at least in my region, is the operations team. We've been together for so long, and I think that's a great analogy. You turn the key, everything should just work. There's lots of systems, there's lots of computers, but it should all just work for you, and you can do your thing. Well, that's awesome, and I think it's a good lesson that you just don't know where things are going to go. We stayed in touch. We stayed friends. I wasn't angry that you didn't come the first time. I wished you well, and we continued to stay in touch. And then really, I think just through Clubhouse, probably. We both got on Clubhouse around the same time, and and we're involved in a lot of conversations, which is kind of a platform that's fizzled out a little bit, but still, it's a cool place to connect. I try to jump on there once in a while still and talk mortgages. But
that was a great way during the lockdown. Because things were shutting down, people weren't leaving the house, so a lot of people were on Clubhouse, and I felt like not only you, but a lot of the originators and agents, we cultivated great relationships on that platform. Now, it's not as trendy anymore, and people are back to a little more normal life, so it's not as popular. But, yeah, that was real. That was real lockdown time.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your business, because what's unique about you is you derive a lot of your leads through your YouTube channel and the work that you've done there. And then I think you're one of the best podcasters and marketers out there, and that has to have started to have an influence on your reach in the real estate community and helping other people, kind of like you've helped me with developing social media strategies. So maybe talk a little bit about how you've taken your love for marketing and kind of used it as a unique selling proposition in your mortgage practice.
Yeah, just backing up too, I've been in the industry for 6.5 years, and I tell people I started at the front of the office. I was the marketing receptionist, coffee pourer, anything, right? That was just 6.5 years ago. And I went from that to LOA doing the social media stuff, and then got licensed and progressed from there, right? And I always just share that because I identified mortgage as a great opportunity because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was doing marketing in other roles and industries, but it wasn't paying the bills. Quite frankly, you're capped out in those positions. So it's like, real estate and mortgage has an amazing opportunity for doing it your way. That's what I love about this industry. The way you might do loans, or she or him, we could do it a million different ways. It's what works for you. So I really enjoy the social media aspect and pulling back the curtain of education. And that is where all my content comes from, is thinking about how I don't want to be treated and how I would want mortgages and real estate to be explained to me. That's really the start.
Well, and I don't know, I mean, you do realize, though, that you've become a real influencer around how your style of doing social media is unique. It's different. It's fresh. And I think that by having conversations with real estate agents, bringing them onto your podcast, helping them create content that they can then use on their social media, providing, you always have, photography in those and stuff. I mean, you're kind of creating a way of doing social in the real estate space, I believe. And then you're giving people an opportunity to kind of leverage what it is that you've built, right? I mean, essentially.
Yeah, and I think if anyone was going to try to jump into it, the podcasting is a really great way to multi-purpose your content. First of all, go live because you're going to chat through it. I don't know. I've been on video a lot, and I, to this day, hate doing scripts. It's so hard to read a script and stare at a computer or a camera and try to be natural.
Yeah.
It's really hard. But you and I having a conversation is easy. We do it all the time. We just had a conversation earlier. I'm like, shoot, that should have been a podcast. That was a great episode, right?
Yeah.
So having this natural conversation, and then we have a full episode, and then we trim it down to shorter educational kind of nuggets or wins or go get them. And you have got some great content. Dan Keller does a really good job touching base on budgeting. That's a part of his business, right? He's big on the wealthy homeowner, budgeting. I'm big. I reach on millennials, and I think we don't like to be sold. We like to be educated. So explain that in my language, right? And that's all we're doing. We're just talking about what we always talk about.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I think I would want to get across is, when you were looking to change companies, obviously operational support was a big thing.
Yeah.
But I know that you shared with me that it's also important to work at a company who embraces your use of social media and can even maybe provide some of those resources,
right.
And this is a real pivot in our industry, something I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be a front runner on this. There's some people that have already sprinted out in front of me, but this is an area where, as a leader in the mortgage space, I want to help originators create content and build their brand. And that comes from things like building out a studio, right? I mean, not all mortgage companies are out building studios in their offices.
Right. Totally.
You know, hiring a full-time videographer who can help run these cameras and set up our podcast and then go to events with us and capture this content that we can then repurpose on social. So maybe speak a little bit to kind of, as a loan officer, you know, I told you, hey, we're going to make some moves to be able to, you know, not only support what you're trying to do from social, but also give that to other loan officers. Make that one of our unique propositions as a mortgage company. I mean, that's kind of unique. And what are your thoughts around that?
It's huge. I think a lot of it, and it's something that I've just had to learn growing up and being in the corporate world, is I call it trickle-down leadership. It's a real thing. So someone who might be your regional or your VP, such as yourself, the leadership from that person then trickles down to branch managers and loan officers. So I know you, and within NAF, it's always like a ready, set, help. How do we do it? Not we don't do that. It's positive, forward thinking. And yeah, it was a big leap of faith coming over, but the relationship I had with you really made that a lot easier.
Yeah.
But I think that's not talked about enough, is that trickle down leadership. What's the attitude from the region, from the company? Because it all comes down to me. If it's negative up top and it's all about shareholders or penny pinching and things like that, those are the builds. I'm not going to feel any space. So I know we're well represented here. I know NAF is a forward-thinking company, and it's going back to that ready, set, help. And then also being proactive, always thinking, yes, let's push the envelope. Why not? Let's do it. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
And I love that here.
Yeah. Well, I want to wrap this up, but I do feel passionate about, you know, not only helping loan officers be great loan officers and provide their home buyers a great experience, you know, close loans on time for their realtors, all the traditional things that you have to have out of a mortgage platform. You know, you need that car to start up and go. I do love that analogy, but I think that we're in a world where we need to do more than that. You know, we need to help loan officers build an individual brand, you know, for themselves and provide some of those resources and really the training, the teaching to do that. And so I'm so thankful that it's not often you get to recruit a loan officer who does production and joins your team, but also brings so much more of what you bring. I mean, dude, I'm so grateful that we connected. Thanks for being my first episode. And this is going to be fun. We're going to have a lot more conversations, but dude, you're a unique dude and you bring a lot to the table, and I really appreciate you. And this has been a great episode, even though our TV went weird on us.
I know. Well, they can't see that if they're listening to your podcast. But thanks for having me on. I'm excited to see this podcast go. I think there's a lot of insight, and people want to be around content in our profession that is about us. People want to hear, why did you make the move? Why did you do this? So I'm excited for the next one.
Right on. Thanks, Addy. And we're out.